In this video, I'm going to show you how I set up my Windows workspace with WSL, VS Code, and Terraform. So welcome back to the channel. I'm Sunny and this is Someone Else's Cloud. So this is probably the first time I think I've shot in this room since I've painted it white. This is probably how it's going to stay, except I don't really like that wall art, so that's probably going to change. But I've got this little shooting setup now, got my little stream deck here. I can pretty much just switch cameras and then I can flick over to that one, as well as I've got my little screen here to actually do my screen recording. So this should hopefully be easier to record videos, and what a better way to get into it than just a simple video on how I set up my Windows workspace. So let's get into this. So I've got my little Windows workspace here. And I don't know if I've installed WSL. Let's see. So to install WSL, basically just go start, just type in Windows features. So WSL is a Windows subsystem for Linux. So basically it's a Linux kernel in Windows, which I need to install. So you just enable it and we'll just let this finish. Okay, so I've installed WSL on this laptop a few times and it seems like for some reason it didn't ask for a reboot. So I've rebooted it anyway. And we're going to open up a command prompt and open it up as admin. And then we should, if we type in WSL, okay, so now it's working. So what you want to run is just a WSL -- update just to make sure you have the latest version. Actually, if you have this problem, what you need to do is just type in WSL -- update and just go -- web download. If you just do -- update, it will install apparently from the Microsoft Store, and for some reason it hangs. So if you do this, it should work. As you can see, it seems to be working. So I had that problem and I don't know why. But I've got this beta version of Windows on this laptop, and my laptop's pretty old, so could have some incompatibility issues. But if you have that problem, that's how you get around it. Okay, so that failed for some reason, but rather than starting all over again, I'm just going to keep on going and we'll see what happens. It's, yeah, I've got this, I'm running, what's it called? I'm running this beta version, which is Windows 23H2 or 23H2. Could be because I've got an old laptop. So anyways, I'll just keep on going along and hopefully it just works. So what we need to do now is just list all the distros. And the one we're going to install is this Ubuntu one. So if you just go WSL -- install, and then it's distribution, and then just the name. Okay, and this is open up terminal in the background, so it's just going to continue installing. I believe it should ask for a username and a password for a local account. Okay, so we're just going to set a local user, just set a password. Okay, and that's done. So that's now installed Ubuntu, and since we're here, what we'll do is we'll just do an update. So sudo apt update. I read some doco, and the recommendation is to also update your certificates. So it's install wget, and then it'll be CA certificates. Hopefully I spelled that right. Okay, and that should be done. So what we're going to do is we're just going to close this. We're going to close this. Just open up a browser, and I think it's code.visualstudio.com. So we're going to download VS Code. So although we're going to use VS Code in WSL, I believe you need to install the Windows version still. Okay, so let's just run the install, and I just install all the defaults. Okay, so that's done. So I'm going to leave that tick box because I want to launch VS Code. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll just leave this as it is. And we'll install the VS Code plugin as it suggests. Okay, so that's installed. So what we're going to do is close this for a sec. And then we're going to reopen VS Code. Then we're going to open up a new terminal. So terminal is already there. Let's untick that. Okay, so it's reopened a terminal in WSL. If not, you can just basically click this and then go Ubuntu. And then generally you should be able to go code dot, and it will install this VS Code server. So as you can see, now I'm actually running VS Code in Linux. So and you can generally tell when you go terminal and you go new terminal window, and there'll be no option for PowerShell or command prompt because this is all just running in WSL. So you can see it labels itself here as well, and up here is Ubuntu. Now, I've started doing this at work because when you run the Windows version, and I run a whole bunch of Git commands and things like that, and I download or clone repos or push code, sometimes there's funny Windows characters that are stored in the files, and then Linux just craps itself. So, you know, there's a tool, I think DOS to Linux or Unix, which converts files. But I mean, it was just easier for me to operate now in VS Code in Linux. So as you can see, so now I'm running in Linux. So this is where I'll start installing my plugins. So I didn't want to install in the Windows version. So I'll put all the plugins below and then I'll walk through them a bit later. So I'll just quickly go through and install them all. Okay, so I've installed all my plugins. What I'll do is I'll come back to them and we'll talk about it a bit later. So I just need to install Unzip. There's a few installers that require it. So just installing Unzip. Okay, and then what we're going to install is we'll just go to our home directory and we're going to make a new folder, which will be workspace. So what we're going to do is just add a tools folder. And then generally what I do is I'll have a GitHub folder. And then generally in the GitHub folder, I'll have orgs. And then I'll have a grouping of repos based on, I guess, what their function is. So at work, I've separated some where we have a core repo. And then we have another one, which is for a platform one. And then ones that are around the networking side of things. So I just separate them into different groups. So what I wanted to do is I've got this workspace folder. So what we'll do next is we're going to install a tool which is called TFENV. It's basically a tool that allows you to just switch between different versions of Terraform. So it's good when you're running different versions of Terraform, which is what I do at work. At home, not so much, but it's handy to just have a command where you can get it to download whatever versions you want. So we're going to install it the manual way. So let's just copy this. What we're going to do is we're going to install this under the tools folder. So it'll be home, workspace, then .tools. Now hopefully I don't need to create that folder, but let's find out. I've got Git, right? Yeah. So Git comes installed by default, but I think this folder doesn't exist. So we're just going to create this folder. Okay, let's try it again. Yeah, this is the weird thing when you copy and paste things. So let's just try and type it in. Again, this is the switching between Windows and Linux, I think. Just create some funky things sometimes. So we go github.com, utils /tfenv.git. I should make this full screen and I'll just try and zoom in. And then if we just go /workspace /tools /tfenv. Yeah, see, that's weird. The copy and paste doesn't work. I don't know why it does that. Let's modify our bash profile. So it's .bashrc. And we're just going to add a path in the bottom. I should probably just do this last, but since I'm installing it, I'll do it now. And pretty much what we need to do is we just type in path equals $path. And then we add the actual path itself, which would be workspace.tools.tfenv. And then what we might add is other ones, which would be, so they'll be all under workspace. And then tools, and then there'll be a .terraform. No, it will be /.terraform. So I'm going to add these later, but I'm just going to do it now just to save time. There'll be another path, which will be, actually it's plugin cache. And what we'll do is we're going to set a value, which is tf plugin cache dir I'll explain what this does later. Just want to do it now since I'm modifying this file. So it'll be workspace /.tools /terraform.d/plugins plugin cache. So they'll just create a environment variable. So other things I like to create like aliases. So you can just go alias, and I can say, I don't know why, I've got a habit of just doing ll, and it used to be an old sort of Linux command. So I'll just re-add it, which is ls-la. I'll add a tf one for Terraform, which will point to workspace.tools.terraform. No, it'll be .tf env. env, and then there's going to a bin, and then there'll be a Terraform executable there. So pretty much anytime I switch versions, that Terraform file will just continually change to whatever version we want. And I think we will leave it at that for now. So I'll just clean that up, and then we'll just reload it. So basically this will reload that profile. So what we'll install next is Python and pip. So I like to use pip to install a bunch of things. Just makes life easier. I don't really write stuff in Python much, but it has been handy, and pip has been too. So I think it's Python 3 pip. Hopefully this will work. And then we're going to use pip to install the Azure CLI. Yeah, I've been trying to shift to Linux because we use Jenkins, and our agents are primarily Linux, but I've tried to use PowerShell on Linux, and it's a bit of a struggle. So I still use Windows and PowerShell for the AZ module, and then where possible I use Linux and the Azure CLI. So I just mix and match, but I still prefer Windows and PowerShell, but I'm trying to shift away and use more of the WSL side of things and the Azure CLI. So I've been messing around with JQ a lot, and yeah, I'm still used to PowerShell, but I've been writing in Bash. Okay, so hopefully this works. I always have problems installing the Azure CLI. Wish me luck. Yeah, and last time I installed it, it just hung like this. So I'm just going to let it sit for a bit. Okay, we're just going to kill it. Install it again. I don't know why it always hangs. I always have problems with the Azure CLI stuff, but it should work. Okay, so that's finally done. Okay, so what we're going to install next is a tool I use, which is Oh-My-Posh. So I made a video about this for the Windows version, but this is WSL. So I'll put these links below as well, but we're going to install this the manual way. So you can see there's a manual install here. So you can pretty much just run this. So we'll see if it works. So you can redirect it too, but I'm just going to use the default directories. So let's try this. Now I believe I need to run sudo. Okay, so that's installed it. So what we need to do is set a theme, but I believe you can just run eval, and then it's Oh-My-Posh, and then you go init, and then I think it's what is it? It's shell, which is bash, and then close a bracket, and that should hopefully work. So as you can see, that's pretty much what Oh-My-Posh looks like. I've got a theme, and then what you need to do is install fonts. So let's you can use Oh-My-Posh to install the fonts. So Oh-My-Posh, and then I think it's font install. And the one I use is this Cascadia code. So that will install the font, and hopefully this works. I always have problems with this too. And we'll choose the mono one because apparently that's more WSL, more VS Code friendly. And if we go to File, and then you go to Preferences and Settings, so shortcut is Control and comma. And you just type in integrated font, and it should bring up this font family. And basically you just need to add that there. And then hopefully, as you can see, I think it's slowly worked. So let me just close this. You can see the icons, and we'll just reopen it. You can see it's set there, but let's try and set it again and see what happens. Okay, so we'll just truck along, and then we'll see if we can fix this font problem. But what we'll do is we just go into my workspace. I've got a theme already, so I'm just going to make a dir called .posh theme. Let's just call it themes. And then I've got a file that I've already got, so it's should be under mount, C, I think there's a demo folder. Yep, so I've got this someone else's cloud theme already, and then we just put it in the themes folder. And then what we'll do is modify our bash profile, and hopefully it just works, but we'll find out. So just put the eval and then quotes, and then we just go into, what is it? Oh-My-Posh, and then it will be init, and then shell bash, and then you can go config, and then we just go workspace dot themes. Is it called dot themes? I hope so. Someone else's cloud dot, and it's omp.json. Close that out, and hopefully this works. So now if I reload the profile, you'll see hopefully the colors will change. Cool. But you can see the font's still funny. This is definitely not how the font should look. Man, I literally just tested this and it worked, and now it doesn't. We're also going to test drive something. Being it's still Windows, I'm curious to know if it has something to do with needing the font inside Windows as well. Yeah, so I don't have this font. So what I'm going to do is go and find this font. Yep, so let's install it. So let's go back to our fonts. Hopefully we can just drag and drop it straight into here. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you need the font in Windows as well, considering it's WSL. But something funny does happen. Okay, so we've also installed the font in Windows. So let's just close this, reopen it. Let's see if that fixes it. Basically, you should have some little glyphs and little icons. I think my laptop's slowly dying. There you go. So it looks like it does need potentially the Windows fonts. So you can see I've got the little folder icon. So I'll show you some other things a bit later on. So we'll keep on trucking along. So far we've installed all of our plugins. We've installed TF-env. So I think TF-env should work, hopefully. It's just TF. Version could not be resolved. Okay, so what we need to do is, let's just go have a look. It's so weird when you set these things up for the first time. It's like you forget, because you generally just do it once and then you just walk away and just forget about it. So let's just see what's in here. TF-env. Whoop. Okay, so it works. So that has to do with probably my path. Let's go modify this again. Let's see what happens. So bash rc. Look at that. Look at the typos. Why doesn't anyone tell me there's typos? Maybe I should do these live so people can tell me I got plugin problems. TF-env. Okay, so the problem is I didn't do the bin folder. So it's basically the bin folder. So let's reload this. Let's just go back to our workspace folder. Yep, so now TFENV is installed, but we'll talk about that later. So I've got Oh-My-Posh with my pretty fonts. So that's sort of working now. As you can see, it showed the master branch before. And what else have we got? So the next thing is what we'll do is we'll set up GitHub as well. So then we can clone some repos and then I'll walk through the plugins. Okay, so we'll just go into GitHub for a second. Okay, so next up, we'll just set up a SSH key. So you just go to your profile, go to settings, and then scroll on the left, there's SSH and SSH key. So we're going to add a new key. So we'll just call this demo. And then what we need to do is we'll flick over to VS Code. So we'll just create a new key, which is keygen-t, and then we go ed2 5519-c. Okay, and they'll just save it in the default SSH path and just enter your passphrases. And then what we need to do is we just need to set permissions on it. SSH, and then it'll be ID. Yep. And then we'll just get the public key. We're just going to copy this and just paste it here. And then we add it. And that should be done. So now what we'll do is we're going to go into this GitHub folder. And I'm just going to make a new folder called Someone Else's Cloud. And we'll go in there, and what we'll do is we'll just clone a couple of repos just so I can show you the plugins. Let's open up this one, not that one, not that one. Here, the pipelines. Okay, so we're just going to clone these three. So let's clone this one. And then we'll clone this one. And we'll just clone this one. Just let me get out of here for a sec. Just going to open up code here. Okay, so you can see here I should have my GitHub folder. Okay, so we'll just roll through quickly the plugins that I use. I would consider myself a fairly simple user. I don't really like to overcomplicate things, but let's roll through these modules quickly, or these plugins. So obviously the Ansible plugin, which is for Ansible in itself, and then Better Ginger, which is for Ginger 2 type templates, Azure Bicep, which is obviously for Bicep, Git Graph, which is a Git plugin that will show you the Git commit history, the Git pull requests and issues, which allows you to actually set it up so you can actually approve PRs and things like that in VS Code. Git Lens is pretty handy as well. It basically links back into GitHub so you can see the history on modified files as well as commit and PR history. Obviously the HashiCorp Terraform plugin for Terraform IntelliSense and error correction. Indent Rainbow is pretty cool. So when you're working with YAML files and things like that, it just distinguishes tabs by colors. So you can see here in this little picture. So it's really good to see, your formatting, and especially something with YAML, because YAML is a bit tedious, and same with JSON as well. And I've obviously got a JSON plugin. I've got the Python plugins. I've got this Rainbow CSV, which obviously is a very simple tool that just shows you colors for different headings. So you can see here as an example. shell format, which is just shell formatting or bash formatting, and just a YAML plugin. So if you have a look at these, so obviously you've got Terraform here. You can see this little indent is actually the rainbow indent. So if I show you the pipelines one, I should have some pipelines hopefully. And you can see all these, the indenting. So this is super handy, especially with something like YAML, because YAML has a tendency to crap itself if you don't have the right indents. So that's super handy. Obviously I've got the other things, and I think in these scripts there's like CSV here. So this just shows you there's two headings, right? So I've added just added a name tab. You can see it's a different color, right? So that's super handy. So it's just formatting, I guess, just makes it easier on the eyes. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So let's see if I can actually get one of these working now. So let's just close this. I don't know if any of these really work, but let's give it a go. So there's two ways you can obviously use Terraform. So you can use the CLI to authenticate, or you can use service principal. So let's see if my scripts still work. Actually, I'm not going to set up a new service principal with my scripts because it's PowerShell and I don't really want to switch. So for the sake of this little demo, what we'll do is we'll go to this little spoke. So let's go into the spoke. Okay, so this is another thing as well, because I used to run VS Code in Windows. Now that I'm running it in Linux, and when I'm using WSL, it's super handy because now it's copying the Linux paths, not the Windows paths, which gets all funky at times. So we're just going to go in this spoke folder for a sec, and then we'll log into the Azure CLI. Okay, so that's logged in. So let's go back to the prompt. So now what we can do, you can see now it's logged into my subscription. And hopefully, I think these files, these Terraform files should hopefully they just work. But I feel like I need to set up the hub first because I've got data lookups here. So let's just go to hub 1. So you can see my folder name will change too, super handy. But obviously these things get quite long. But if I go tf env install, they'll just install the latest. Okay, so it looks like we have to go tf env use. Okay, so it's switching. Now, if I go tf version, it should work. Okay, so now it works. So if I just go tf init, so hopefully I can just use Terraform without setting up my providers. So I'll just do a plan. Okay, so obviously it's complaining about alert types. So if we just go through, so we won't fix this. I haven't looked at this code for a long time. So I think I've created some alerts probably here. Yep, so I've created some data sources. So I'm just gonna comment these out because obviously it's changed. So I'm just gonna comment all these performance logs and data, and hopefully the rest works. Haven't used this code for a long time. So if we just go do another plan, let's just move this up. Oh, I killed that. I thought it was still erroring. Okay, so as you can see, so Terraform is good to go. So that's used the Azure CLI and Terraform. So you can see here it's got a plan which is going to deploy this infrastructure. And that's pretty much it, I think. Let me see if there's anything else.
6.5 hours later.
So for some reason, the TF cache plugin folder is not being respected. But what it's supposed to do is centralize your plugin directory, which basically means if you're working across multiple tenants and you're using different providers, different plugins, it will basically centralize it so you don't have to re-download it each time. It just downloads it once and then it'll reuse the local cache rather than re-downloading each time. So it's super useful from re-downloading plugins each time if you have multiple tenants with different plugin versions. Hey guys, so editing Sunny here. I thought I'd just come back to this TF plugin cache problem. So if you have a look, I set it via the command line, and now it's a standard variable. So you can see I've set it here. Now, if you have a look at this, I have a .terraform folder here, and if you have a look, it's actually a symlink to my plugin cache folder. So it is working. Potentially, I had the export command, which is an environment variable, which is supposed to override, but for some reason that wasn't working. But I just set it via the command line, and I just wanted to show that it does work. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the video. So I thought I'd just quickly show you how I set up my Windows workspace and some of the tools that I use at home and at work. But I'll be basically using this as a stepping stone to my next video, which will be building an Azure lab. So what I want to do is set up a hub spoke model, but put all the code into one block or one repo. So then that way I can just deploy it each time I want to do demos, whether that be for Azure policy, that be for any networking stuff. I'll just have a whole hub and spoke model ready to go without multiple Terraform workspaces and things like that. So stay tuned for the next video, and I'm signing out. See ya! So, me. So welcome back to the channel.